Chosen ones, awaken your soul. Power is not given to you. It is something you claim. As Beyoncé said, consider that for a moment. History's most influential figures didn't wait for an invitation. They embraced their greatness. And the wild part? They weren't as strong as you are now. Science proves that people can feel your energy. It's not just what they see, it's what they sense. Your presence affects their emotions, choices, even their bodies. And that scares them. They fear your power. You are the force that can bring down empires. Embrace it. Have you ever noticed how certain people feel uneasy around you? Perhaps they make subtle barbs at your confidence, behave strangely competitive, or attempt to discredit you. It's instinctive, not random. People who depend on fear and control begin to perspire when they see someone with unadulterated, unstoppable energy. You need to hear this because you don't realize how strong you are, but they do. They work so hard to prevent you from recognizing it because of this. Let's discuss it. Let's dissect it because the game changes forever once you fully comprehend what's inside of you. Number 1. Your existence alone disrupts the status quo. You don't need to prove yourself to others, move mountains, or deliver speeches. Everything they've built is already shattered by your presence alone. It's disruptive the way you think, the way you enter a room, the way you just are. You don't fit the mold they so badly want you to fit into, not because you're trying to be. And for them, that is an issue. Predictability is what people thrive on. Institutions, society, and even those in your immediate vicinity operate on expectations. However, they don't know how to deal with you when you deviate from the norm or don't follow the plan. You stand for something beyond their control. They cannot label you, they cannot pin you down, and they most certainly cannot make you feel less than you really are. You make them uncomfortable because of this. Some may attempt to diminish you, behave as if you're too much, or advise you to calm down, not because you need to, but rather because your presence makes them feel insignificant. They are compelled to face their own limitations, fears, and resistance to liberation, and they would prefer to transfer it onto you rather than deal with it. To be powerful, you don't have to prove anything. Just by living as you are, unapologetic, distinct, aware, you destabilize the whole system. That's why people respond to you the way they do. That's why people feel intimidated, even when you haven't done anything directly to them. Because the reality is, you are accomplishing something. You're showing them a version of life they either don't comprehend or don't have the confidence to live. What's the greatest part? You don't need their approval. You don't need them to get it. Because whether they admit it or not, you are a force. And nothing worries people more than something they can't control. Second, they are afraid of the unknown, and you are erratic. People are afraid of things they cannot foresee, not those they understand. And that's precisely why you frighten people. The patterns they are used to are not followed by you. You don't react as they anticipate. They assumed you would follow the rules, but you don't. Those who depend on control find that type of unpredictability unnerving. The majority of individuals lead looping lives. They follow an unseen script without even questioning it. Say what is expected of them, and do what is expected of them. Then there is you, however. You don't belong in their preconceived story. They are more irritated by your inability to fit into a category than they would ever acknowledge. You don't move like they do, so they watch you to see what you'll do next. They wait for your response, but it's not what they were hoping for. They test you, irritate you, or even attempt to confine you because of this, because they can control you if they can make you predictable. Additionally, terror takes over when that fails. Not everyone who speaks loudly or occupies the most space is powerful. The real power is in your capacity to be unreadable, to make others think twice, to keep them guessing about your next move. They can't control you if they can't anticipate you. They are unable to plan for your next move when they are unable to predict it. And the panic starts when they discover they never had you figured out in the first place. Predictability is not something you owe anyone. To conform to their constrained view of you, you don't have to minimize yourself. You have greater power the more you accept that you can move differently, think for yourself, and behave as you see fit. And the more they understand that, despite their best efforts, they will never fully understand your potential until it is too late. Number 3, they have an issue with the fact that you don't need permission to be great. Most individuals are waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to take what they desire for approval or for permission. The fact is, however, that nobody is coming to provide you permission. You won't get respect, authority, or a seat at the table from anybody. Those that possess it snatched it without waiting, and the moment you choose to follow suit, you start to cause trouble for the people who profited from your meekness. People are indoctrinated to think that in order to advance, they must be selected by a superior, a system, or society. That is untrue. The purpose of the tale is to keep you still while others take action. The very thing that keeps most people stuck, the fear of moving without approval, is eliminated the moment you realize you don't need anyone's approval to be great. They dislike it when you work in a different way because of this. It's unnerving for them when you stop apologizing for wanting more, when you take up space without questioning whether you deserve it, and when you start speaking up without asking if it's too loud. Since you don't feel worthy, they require permission. And for that reason, you are dangerous, unpredictable, and a threat. They will attempt to discredit you, cast doubt on your abilities, and persuade you that you are not prepared. Because you will hesitate if you think that. You'll hold out. You'll be self-conscious long enough for them to succeed. However, the game changes in your favor if you choose not to play that game, if you just decide that you are ready and don't need their approval. You can occupy space without permission. You can proceed without a green light. Your power exists even if they don't acknowledge it. Whether you realize it or not is all that matters, because once you do, nothing can stop you. Not even their rules, their doubts, or their opinions. Number 4, your presence forces people to confront their own limitations. There's a reason some people react so strongly to you, and it's not always about what you've done. It's about what you represent. You remind them of everything they could be, but aren't. Everything they wanted to do, but never did. Every version of themselves they buried under excuses, fear, and complacency. And instead of facing that uncomfortable truth, they take the easy way out. They project their frustration onto you. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's disguised as backhanded compliments, subtle competition, or dismissive comments. You think you're better than everyone? Why are you trying so hard? Must be nice to have that confidence. What they're really saying is, I see something in you that I wish I had in myself, and it's easier to criticize you than to admit that I've been holding myself back. People don't lash out at mediocrity. They don't waste energy resenting those who make them feel comfortable. But someone who challenges their self-perception, someone who forces them to see their wasted potential, that's a different story. You're not simply another individual to them. You're a mirror. And staring into that mirror may be traumatic when they don't like what they see. This is why some individuals would attempt to belittle your successes or make you doubt yourself. If they can shatter your confidence, they won't have to cope with their own. If they can drag you down to their level, they won't have to climb up to yours. But that's their war, not yours. You are not responsible for their anxieties. You are not accountable for making others feel comfortable at the expense of your own advancement. The ones that are ready to progress will be motivated by you. The ones that aren't will be intimidated. Either way, it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. Continue. Continue to rise. and let them deal with themselves. Number 5. You've already won the instant people start talking about you. The instant people start talking about you, you've already won. Because here's the truth. People don't spend energy on things that don't important. They don't spread rumors about unimportant people. When someone isn't a danger, they don't strive to undermine them. They are trying to bring you down because you are important, which is why your name is in their mouth. And they are aware of it, whether they acknowledge it or not. What people fear, they attack. It serves as a safeguard. Something deep inside them is triggered when they see someone rising. Someone who defies authority. Someone who doesn't need their consent to proceed. It serves as a reminder of their own shortcomings, fears, and limits. And they fixate on you rather than fixing themselves. They will misrepresent you, minimize your skills, and attempt to make you feel less than you really are. They need it to be true, not because it's the case. They won't have to deal with the fact that you've already outgrown them if they can persuade themselves that you're just fortunate, that you don't deserve what you have, and that you're not a danger. What's the most hilarious part? They give you more power the more they speak. They are extending your influence each time they bring up your name. They are demonstrating your worthiness each time they attempt to disparage you. You are inadvertently becoming more relevant to those who want for your failure. So let them talk. Allow them to whisper. Let them waste their energy trying to bring you down. Because while they're busy fussing about you, you're busy winning. You don't have to defend yourself. Nothing needs to be proven by you. Just their response is evidence that you've already had an effect. And that's a win. The 6th is that you should be respected rather than liked. The need to be liked traps most people. They modify themselves depending on what others approve of, altering their words, behaviors, and even their goals to fit into a mold that makes them acceptable. But here's the problem. When you live for approval, you get reliant on it. Additionally, you are controlled when you are reliant. For this reason, those in positions of authority want respect rather than popularity, because there is a foundation of respect. It doesn't matter how many people give you a pat on the back or a smile. It's about how many people recognize your value, even if they don't personally like you. The most influential individuals in history weren't universally loved for a reason. They had no intention of pleasing everyone. They were too preoccupied about creating an impression. They were too busy moving in ways that upset the system, saying what needed to be said and doing what needed to be done. And you're sure to annoy folks when you move that way. The fact is, however, that you don't have to win over everyone. All you need is respect from the proper people. Because respect opens doors. It forces people to acknowledge you, even if they don't want to. It puts you in positions where being liked is irrelevant because your presence is undeniable. The second you stop attempting to win people over, you become invincible. You move in a unique way. You stop defending your decisions, stopping to explain yourself, and stopping to weaken yourself in order to appease others. Real power then comes into play. Let them despise you. Allow them to misinterpret you. Let them speak. Because ultimately, you get nothing from their approval but their respect. That endures. That shifts things. You are therefore unstoppable. 7th, you don't speak their language, thus they can't comprehend you. They don't understand you for a reason. It's not because you're incorrect, or because you're too much, or because you need to express yourself better. It's because you don't even speak the same language. You talk in action, they speak in fear. Whereas they speak of self-imposed limitations, hesitation, and excuses, you speak of movement, progress, and execution. Let's make it happen, you offer. And they respond, but what if it doesn't work? Boncho, you think. What's the next step? What's the safest option? They ask themselves. You're using a different frequency when you play. They are caught in a vicious cycle. reciting the same stories that keep them at ease, the same fears, and the same uncertainties. And seeing someone who doesn't want to be imprisoned with them is the most unsettling thing for individuals. They see you as the odd one because of this. They accuse you of being conceited, irresponsible, or unrealistic because of this. It's not because you are. It's because your perspective makes theirs seem tiny. And they would like to drag you back down to a point where they can once again comprehend you, rather than climbing up to meet you. You don't owe them that, however. To make them feel secure, you don't have to make yourself smaller. You don't have to slow down so they can keep up. If they don't comprehend your movements, let them be perplexed. Allow them to misread you. If they fail to understand why you believe the way you do, allow them to participate in the same discussions and recite the same anxieties if they so choose. However, you have things to construct, destinations to visit, and a future to shape. You don't need them to comprehend. You must continue to move, because the people who are supposed to be on your level will be able to identify your language as soon as they hear it. Eighth, what you don't say has just as much power as what you say. Power is more than just words. The weakest person in the room is frequently the one who makes the most noise. True power lies in self-control, in what you choose to say, what you don't say, and what you don't respond to. People get nervous when there is silence. It makes people fill in the blanks, reflect on their own thoughts, and wonder what you're thinking. And the actual control is there. You lose your power when you dispute, over-explain, or make an effort to prove yourself. You provide them with a starting point, a counterpoint, and a twist. However, they have nothing when you remain silent. Silence cannot be twisted by them. They are unable to control what does not exist. That's why people panic when you don't react. They want you to become defensive, to explain yourself, to meet them on their level. But when you fail to interact, when you let their words fall into empty space, it drives them mad. They race to force a reaction out of you, to drive you into justifying yourself. Because the second you do, they've won. They've lured you into their game. But the most powerful individuals don't play that game. They let their deeds, their outcomes, and their presence speak louder than any words ever could. They realize that silence is its own type of reaction, a response that unsettles, that compels attention, that pushes others to feel their presence, rather than merely hear their voice. Not everything deserves a response. Not every remark is worthy of a response. It's not worth your effort to respond to every insult, gossip, and attempt to irritate you. Knowing when to speak and when to keep quiet is what it means to be powerful. You become untouchable once you grasp that. 9. People become anxious when they are the exception, and you are the exception. People want to think that there are rules, not only laws, but also unwritten norms about achievement, life, and what is achievable. They keep themselves comfortable by telling themselves things like, "You have to follow this path to make it. You need these qualifications to succeed, and you must wait your turn, pay your dues, and stay within the lines." They provide them with a feeling of structure. Then you show up and don't do anything about it. You move in a unique way. Without requesting permission, you achieve results. You achieve success without following the plan they have persuaded themselves is the only viable option. They are frightened by it, because it's possible that the rules they base their lives on never applied to anyone if they don't apply to you. They attempt to discredit you for this reason. They act as though you must have cheated the system, call you lucky, or claim that you had an unfair advantage, because they would have to face the reality that they have been stifling themselves all along if they acknowledged that you are just evidence that the rules were never real. And rather than confront the reality, most individuals would prefer to keep their comfort. They don't despise you. It's because you stand for a reality they weren't prepared for, a world in which they could have done more but choose not to, where playing it safe wasn't required, and where the constraints they thought they had were self-imposed. Thus, they strike out. They minimize your accomplishments. They behave as if you are the strange one. But they know the truth in their hearts. You've shown that they are unaffected by the rules, that boundaries are illusory, and that only they can stop themselves. And for that reason, people are anxious about exceptions, because everyone has to start doubting what they believe to be true once someone demonstrates that the rules were never genuine. Number 10. You see through the illusions, and that makes you a threat. Most people are asleep, not physically, but intellectually. They're imprisoned in a system meant to keep them preoccupied, pursuing things that don't important, and believing falsehoods that keep them little. They're taught success is about approval. Pleasure comes from outside validation, and power is something given rather than gained. And they believe it, because believing is simpler than questioning. But you don't buy into it. You see through the illusions. Worse than that, you know how to win the game. That makes you a threat to whole systems as well as to people, because it is impossible to control those who can see through the cacophony. They cannot be subdued by phony incentives or promises. They don't squander time pursuing unfulfilled goals that were intended to keep them busy. And it puts everything at risk. They encourage people to go in circles, believing that following their rules is the only way to succeed. However, you are more knowledgeable. You've come to understand that the true power lies in not needing approval, not in pursuing it. Building your own path is the true path to success, not taking the one they paved for you. You can't unsee it once you've seen it. They make a concerted effort to silence you, discredit you, or cause you to doubt yourself because of this. It's because you're correct, not because you're incorrect. It's because you're strong, not because you're weak. Because the only people who can break the cycle are people like you. People who think independently, act purposefully, and defy authority. The thing that scares them the most is that when you truly embrace your power, other people will notice it too, and the system as a whole begins to fall apart when that occurs. Because all it takes for everyone else to quit playing by the rules is for one individual to demonstrate that the game was rigged. 11th, it becomes more lonely as you level up, which is a nice thing. Fewer individuals are able to breathe at your height as you go higher. The system's architecture is flawed, not the system itself. A degree of endurance that most individuals lack is necessary for power, achievement, and self-mastery. Additionally, you'll note that the throng grows thinner as you go on. It seems personal at first. You wonder why people you once trusted start to distance themselves, why certain relationships feel strained, why fewer people seem to understand you. But then you realize it's not you that changed in a bad way. It's that they never intended to climb this high. Not everyone is built to handle power. It takes resilience, discipline, and a level of self-awareness most people aren't willing to develop. Some prefer comfort over growth. Some are addicted to distractions, excuses, and mediocrity. And when you step into something greater, they have two choices: rise with you or step back. Most choose the latter. That's not a loss, it's a filter. The individuals who can't withstand the strain of your progress were never intended to go all the way with you. If they were, they'd be leveling up too. But when they start resenting your growth, when they make you feel terrible for wanting more, when they quietly strive to keep you reachable, that's your signal. They were never intended for the next level. The loneliness at the top isn't a punishment. It's an indication you're precisely where you're intended to be. It indicates that you didn't give up. You continued. When others offered excuses, you persisted. And you'll be found by those who belong at the top. Because there are less distractions the higher you go. The more obvious your route becomes. And the more you agree with those who get it, the better. So let them go. Allow them to misinterpret you. Allow them to remain in their comfort zone. Not everyone is suited for your journey. And that's precisely what gives it its power. Number 12. Because they are unable to deal with the truth, they want you to doubt yourself. Those who are afraid of your power know exactly how to use doubt as a weapon. They don't have to completely stop you. They only have to make you doubt yourself. Because you don't have to let them stop you. Once you begin to question, pause, and doubt your own skills, you'll handle it on your own. The game is that, through subtle comments, sidelong glances, and lukewarm support masquerading as concern, they sow the seeds of insecurity. Are you certain that you're prepared for this? What if you don't succeed? It's not advice. People like us don't usually make it that far. It's not caution. It's fear, their fear, projected onto you because, here's the truth, your growth forces people to confront their own lies. They've spent years convincing themselves that success is reserved for the chosen few. That confidence is arrogance. That big moves are reckless. That staying small is the smart choice. Then you come along, breaking every rule they swore was real. You prove that limits are self-imposed, that fear is a choice, that success isn't about permission, it's about persistence. And that shakes them to their core. Because if you're right, that means they've been wrong. And instead of admitting that, instead of rising with you, they'd rather pull you back down. That's why imposter syndrome creeps in. Not because you don't belong, but because you're walking into something real, something most people never have the bravery to confront. When you start questioning yourself, realize where it's coming from. It's not your truth, it's theirs. It's the weight of everyone who never dared to do what you're doing, attempting to anchor you back where they feel secure. You don't owe them that, however. You don't have to bear their concerns. Let them doubt, allow them to whisper. Let them continue in the delusion. You have an alternative route, and the second you stop seeking their favor, you become unstoppable. Number 13. The most powerful person in the room is the one least frightened to lose. Power isn't about having the most money, the loudest voice, or the highest position. Real strength comes from one thing, an absence of fear. And the most powerful person in every room is the one least frightened to lose. Most people work from fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing what they have achieved. Those with status, titles, and influence, the so-called powerful, are frequently just as trapped as the general public. Because they move to avoid losing, not to win. They engage in defensive play. They avoid danger, hoard, and protect. They never really rise because they are afraid of falling. However, it's a different game you play. You don't have a desperate need to hang on to things. Scarcity, the need to impress, or the fear of what might happen if everything fails are not the reasons behind your move. Since you are aware of what most others are not, that freedom is the true power, you are not bound to a certain result. You become unpredictable after you get over your fear of losing things. You do things that other people wouldn't dare do. To those who are controlled by fear, you take chances that look crazy. You are not constrained by the desire for comfort, safety, or acceptability. And for anyone who is, that makes you a nightmare, since they are unable to control you. They can't control you with threats, with rejection, with the risk of failure. None of it impacts you. That's why courageous individuals flourish, while others remain stuck. Because while they're busy clinging to what they have, trying to prevent loss, you're out there producing more. You're growing, taking shots, making plays. You are an uncontrollable force as a result of this. Despite their refusal to acknowledge it, they feel it. Even though they act as though they don't, they see it. They also know in their hearts that you are not here to blend in. You're here to make all the difference. Allow them to feel uneasy. Let them ask you questions. Let them go. You are rising, and the air grows thinner near the summit. Not everyone is built for it. Not everyone has the confidence to tread this route. But you do. Keep moving. Continue to cause trouble. Continue evolving. Because you become unstoppable the moment you stop trying to get their approval, and the moment you truly accept who you were destined to be. Don't keep this message to yourself if it struck a different chord with you. If it caused you to reflect, feel something, or be reminded of your true nature. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, like it, and leave a comment. And if you're ready for more real, unedited truth that drives you to level up, subscribe to the channel and switch on alerts, because we're just getting started. The world needs more people who refuse to play small. More people who break the rules, shake the system, and step fully into their power. If that's you, stick around. This is your moment.